Hi there, everyone. My name's Emma. I'm a senior studying biology, and the title of my presentation is There's No Place Like Home, Manchester by the Sea, the place where movies are made and coastlines are picturesque. I would like to thank my advisor, Dr. Courtney, as well. So diving right in, where is Manchester by the Sea? Manchester is a small coastal community right like 30-ish miles north of Boston. And if you haven't guessed it, it is my home. I have spent a lot of time in Manchester. I grew up going and being outside all the time, so it's been a place that has been very dear to my heart. It also is the reason why I want to go into biology and environmental science. So now kind of going into a little bit of historical context of Manchester by the Sea. Manchester used to be called Jeffreys Creek, and it was home to Native American communities. Unfortunately, during colonization and all that stuff, the Native Americans were pushed north. And then during the settlers, when the Pilgrims came, this settler and 30 other people came to Jeffreys Creek and realized that they could make a profit off of fishing in this community. And then during the Industrial Revolution, wealthy businessmen from the city would come and they would bring their families in summer here as well. So now kind of going into the purpose of this project, I, in my time living in Manchester, have seen it drastically change because of sea level rise and coastal erosion as well. So I wanted to kind of change how we talk about environmental change because in my experience, talking to people hasn't always been positive. It's always kind of perplexed me why people don't always apply to the statistics, and all that stuff. So I wanted to encapsulate the beauty of Manchester by using photography and drone imagery as well. So these are just examples of environmental change that you might see in Manchester. The photo of Singing Beach was taken in 2013 after there were countless nor'easters happening in the winter, and it made it really difficult for people to enjoy the beach. And then the other side was this photo just taken last year after a minor rainstorm. This is not usual for Manchester, especially this area as well. So the town hall parking lot was completely flooded. And the town hall is right behind me as I was taking this photo. But a lot of the offices on the first floor flood all the time. So kind of going into the methods of this project, I collected archives from our local historical society. And then to match up the photos, I got a drone and I flew it over the locations along the places that I found in the archives. And then I wanted to gauge community interest and speak with people from my town. So this is an example of an archived photo. This is Singing Beach. It is one of the staple locations of Manchester. A lot of tourists come here over the summer to enjoy the water. This photo was taken in 1895, and so this is just an example of a broader photo that I used, and then this is a matchup that I took with the drone. This was taken in November, so there was not a lot of people on the beach, but it's a beautiful shot. And then in a lot of the places with buildings, I wanted to pinpoint a place that I could match up the photos side by side, so I used specific landmarks for a reference point so that I could match it up with the drone shot. So that's an example of a reference points that I used. And then this is a side-by-side photo. This is a Masconomo Park around early 1900s, and you can see all of the marshland and swampland has been completely dug out to make room for the harbor, along with the channel as well. This is also a different vantage point of Masconomo Park from 1961, so there's been a lot more infrastructure and buildings and all that kind of stuff. And then also Masconomo Park as well. So this was the early to mid 1900s before dredging. So what dredging means is exactly what I said before, essentially digging out all of the swamp and marshland to create room for the harbor along with the channel, which now we're reaping the consequences of because these locations in Manchester flood very easily now. Same with this photo is right of Town Hall. Before dredging, so this swampland area on the archived photo was completely dug out. And yeah, it was so interesting seeing them side by side. And then this is Singing Beach as well. This is the circa 1890s, which you can see by what the people are wearing. um, and then this photo is also from 2025. Little bit of a difference. We have a seawall now, but it's just interesting to see it. It's such an early time. So now kind of going into my reflection of the photos, I didn't realize how much history and how much beauty was found within these photos. And if we really work hard, we can preserve that beauty. I also didn't realize how much change has happened. And I know it's my home, but I just felt like it was so much more than a place on the map. So now I wanted to gauge the rest of my community. So I conducted 4 interviews with 4 senior citizens. I showed them that side-by-side photo kind of process a couple slides before, and then I just kind of opened up conversations about changes that they've noticed, not just focusing on environmental, but also social changes as well. So these are my lovely interviewees. Holly Gavin is 74 years old. She was born in Manchester, and now her whole family lives there. Beverly Melvin is 85 years old, and her story was super interesting because she lived in Manchester during World War II, so it was really interesting hearing her perspective. And then Peter Darcy is 71 years old. He moved to town in 1959, and then Pat Glennon is 80, and she moved to Manchester at age 3. So here's just some quotes that I found were interesting during the interviews. I asked them what kind of changes they've noticed, and Pat mentioned how she feels that the entire social landscape has changed. Beverly Melvin also talks about how she used to walk to the Dutch Bowl, which is this ice cream shop. It was a couple miles away. We didn't complain, it was just the way it was, which is interesting now because now you can barely drive in Manchester because of how much beach traffic there is. And then we kind of got into memories that they've had in Manchester. So there's a lot of brooks and swamps in Manchester by the sea, and these people have such amazing stories with their families, searching for pollywogs or just hanging out by the pond. And Holly says, I guess people, I don't know if they don't care or if they're just not interested. And then Peter recalls how different the swamps have changed. He says it's not just the houses and all the swamps. They had rabbits, birds, and they're just all gone and had to relocate. So now kind of just going into a compare and contrast of my reflections versus their reflections. For me, I was coming at it at a more scientific perspective while also having that personal connection to Manchester, but I was able to kind of step away from the science of it all and just appreciate the town's beauty. For the interviewees, they've lived in Manchester for a longer period of time, so they got more of a sense of what's changed, and they felt that the social change has changed greatly. And then our thoughts, we all agreed that change is happening, the beauty is diminishing, and we feel a level of uncertainty and believe that action needs to happen. Like I said before, takeaway from the interviews, there's a variety of changes, but they also were intrigued with what I had to say and what this project was, but they also expressed the level of frustration and uncertainty that they have. So in conclusion, having tough conversations can be positive, and we can have effective communication by highlighting beauty such as photography or art-based methods or anything like that, and conversations can lead to so much more. So in the end of this project, I decided to compile a paper. I think it would be so cool to publicize it in school or even in our local newspaper, just to hopefully so we can talk about change in a positive way using art. And I actually get the opportunity to continue this research in grad school, which I'm super excited for. But thank you, that's it. Any questions?
What was more striking to you, seeing the photos side by side or the interviews with the people from your town?
I think, honestly, I would say both, because I think I was able to physically see the changes that they were talking about, but I also think it was interesting listening to their stories and what they've noticed. And I kind of kept the science away from it all, which they kind of appreciated, which was also interesting, but it was nice just hearing their stories and their memories and how all of their families still live in Manchester and how they're worried about their future and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely both.
Having lived in Manchester your whole life, have you noticed any changes?
Yes, definitely. Each year, the beach kind of, there's smaller beach each and every year. Also, the amount of flooding that we've had just this year, I have never experienced before. And there's a lot of brooks and swamps behind my house and stuff, so we go hiking all the time with the dog, and all of those are almost all dried up. So yeah, I've definitely seen some differences, changes.
First of all, Emma, great job. You mentioned continuing this in grad school. Like, what is that going to look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm continuing my education in a master's program at the University of Maine. And so we are going to be thinking about different art-based methods that we could use as a community resilience project for the people along the Damascotta River. So whether that be putting on an art gallery at a local high school or something like that, just to come up with a more creative way that we can get people engaged.